Alrighty, greetings and salutations, everyone. My name is Andrew Kirchhoff, and welcome to our live stream for Thursday of Week 8 of the 2025 fantasy football season. Over the course of the next hour, we're talking all things fantasy football. Of course, we just all enjoyed a very boring football game here. Very much so one-sided affair, to be honest. I'm not going to lie. I fell asleep midway through that third quarter. So there wasn't enough to keep me entertained, genuinely speaking. Again, usually over the course of this season, we have seen interdivisional matchups between division rivals of different divisions. Like last week was the AFC North, Bengals versus Steelers. And because of those kind of close matchups, it's kept Thursday nights incredibly entertaining. But I guess for those of you who had anybody associated with the Los Angeles Chargers by the name of Justin Herbert, Kamani Vidal, Ladd McConkey, and of course, Gadsden, who, we expected him to play well. He's continuing a streak of success. I guess if you had any of those players rolling tonight, fantastic. Otherwise, my goodness, what a terrible day. At the end of the first half, I looked at Justin Jefferson's scoreline. I saw he had 70 some odd yards. I went, you know what? This looks a lot like the yardage count he had last year. I think it was around week 7 against the LA Rams in Los Angeles. He had 70 some odd yards in the first half. Maybe it was 90 yards and then didn't catch a single ball for the remainder of the game. Somehow returns again to kill our fantasy stock in regards to the potential of Justin Jefferson. But hey, hopefully for the future of the season, JJ McCarthy is going to be available and he's going to be doing something. Please, anything. Just be, keep the offense moving, because that was just a rough game to watch. Okay. Hope you guys are doing well. We're going to be answering questions. If you guys want to send in a question, whether it is via the live chat and or super chat, you can claim priority via the super chat. Again, whatever way you guys go about asking your questions, make sure you include your scoring format. That is greatly appreciated as per usual. The scoring format gives me a little bit more context so I can answer your questions to the best of my ability. Earlier today, I did post my quarterback and tight end rankings for this week, just so that we're all on the same page as to where I was at to begin the night. We had Gadsden in regards to our number 5, Hawkinson at number 12. Hawkinson obviously left out to dry with all remaining Minnesota Vikings kind of prospects outside of probably Jordan Addison, who snuck away with a touchdown. And in regards to the quarterback conversation, Justin Herbert delivers with not only the 3 touchdowns we required, but also rushing yardage that continues to keep him at the top tier of this conversation. Luckily, his offensive line is healthy, ready to go, and hopefully for the remainder of the season, this man is just going to continue to cook as he has thus far. Okay, let's go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and pop in here and throw up a couple of these chat questions via the supers that have rolled in. Okay, so we begin with Avram, who says, is Bijan and Jamison Williams for Barkley and McConkey a fair trade in a half PPR? I'm curious what the context of this is. In regards to, technically, is it a fair trade? Look, here's the reality of the situation. Barkley hasn't done anything. I feel like he can only get better, technically speaking, or he will just be much of the same, which scares the crap out of me. I feel like if you're willing to trade for Barkley right now, you're all in on the risk. I think I would rather just roll with Bijan Robinson and the potential of myself getting in a half PPR, anywhere between 20 to 25 points per game weekly. If you want to take on the risk of Barkley and McConkey, technically speaking, the value here that potentially can be unlocked, assuming Barkley is somewhat relevant, based on the fact that McConkey's been incredible for 4 straight weeks here, double-digit fantasy points and a half PPR. If Barkley could get to being a 15-point player every week, then theoretically speaking, this would be the more valuable of the duos, considering Jamison Williams is so highly volatile thus far this season. But that volatility, again, is something that we already know that the wide receiver position already innately has comparatively to running backs, considering the lack of volume of touches consistently being there. But if you were willing to take the maximum risk here, then sure, you go in this direction. But if it's me, I think unless I'm super desperate for a wide receiver, unless I'm incredibly desperate, because my wide receivers have been completely cooked. I had Neighbors, I had Hill, I had Evans. They all got hurt. I got nobody. Maybe I look in the direction of a trade in which I'm bringing in a McConkey Barkley. Otherwise, I probably just hold on to Bijan. Jocelyn says, questions in the chat. Warning, it's a long one. LOL. Okay, here we go. I don't see any questions. All I see is guitars. All right, Jocelyn, let me know whenever those are sent in. Let's see here. Flotation says, check X. Okay, let's see what you have here, brother. Let me go ahead and open up Twitter. Let's see what you have sent on over to me. Let's see what do we have here. Says, would you trade Trevor Lawrence for T. Higgins? I mean, this is a super flex format, right? Says, I'm also thinking about grabbing Kate Otten, but I might just keep my tight ends. I mean, I think Kate Otten would be a solid pickup for this week, but that it would only be to play over Hunter Henry, theoretically speaking, if you have an open roster spot available. Now, in the event in which you were looking to trade a quarterback, my only concern ends up being like when Jackson Dart has an upcoming bye week, what do we do with, your super flex? That's my only concern at the moment. When I look at the upcoming schedule for the Bengals, I think it is soft enough to where T. Higgins could find himself a lot of success as we proceed. I'm actually curious when Jackson Dart does have a bye. Let me check real quick. So he has a week 14 bye. So basically between now and then, you're not going to have to worry about quarterback bye weeks. You can pretty much just, ball out henceforth. I think in a super flex format, especially if this is a 12-team league here, flotation, if this in fact is a 12-team league, I feel like you should be able to get more than just T. Higgins in exchange for Trevor Lawrence. I feel that way. In the event in which that is the most in which you can get for a quarterback of that caliber, considering a 2 QB format, then sure, let's take it because I think it helps you in the long run rather than just keeping Lawrence on the bench henceforth, because that's where he is going to stay in comparison to Josh Allen and Jackson Dart for the remainder of the season. So yeah, I don't mind making that move just purely because I'm improving wide receiver. If you can get somebody that is a little bit more impactful, that would be great, especially if you can go after a running back of sorts. But in the event in which that is not possible, then we position ourselves to just make this trade because, again, that upcoming schedule for Cincy looking solid, and, of course, Joe Flacco as well. Thank you. Johnny Kilroy, what's up, Johnny? Says, should I consider trading Jefferson due to the bad week of Wentz and McCarthy? Well, I would wait until McCarthy returns before I make that settled judgment on the potential future of Justin Jefferson. I do think that there is enough value to be had in Jefferson to give him another opportunity. Now, if you were going to theoretically trade him, what would you get in exchange? That's really just the entire controlled method here. If you can find enough of a comparable value in exchange for Jefferson, then yeah, I'm more than happy to go ahead and make that move. But ultimately, I would wait for the return of McCarthy, maybe let him have an uptick of a performance before shipping him off here in the future. It says Pinheiro or McLaughlin this week. I would rather have Pinheiro. I don't think Eddie Pinheiro has put together a single bad performance over the course of the last couple weeks here. I could be mistaken, but let me go ahead and let me just reference this. So as of the course of, over the course of the last couple weeks here, he's put up 11, 18, 17, 7, 12, 10. Like, Eddie Pinheiro has just been far more consistent in comparison to the majority of the field. There's a reason why thus far this season, he is averaging the most fantasy points per game at the kicker position. Pinheiro should be the auto start. If I was in your position, I would have dropped McLaughlin a long time ago and just kept Pinheiro going, considering the 49ers don't have a bye week until week 14. Flotation sends in a follow-up, says, huge Vikings fan. Hate that we have, what you have going on at quarterback. No, I get it. I think the quarterback situation that you're in, I don't really mind the idea that they've kind of left, JJ McCarthy on the shelf, theoretically speaking. I think it is, in turn, wise to make sure that if he's legitimately injured, you make sure he's healthy before you bring him back. I think it's very commendable of the organization to not throw him out there hobbled and basically leave him out there like a statue with this offensive line. So justifiably so, I think it was a good decision to go ahead and sit him, and hopefully he's gotten healthy and he can return and obviously ball out as we proceed here. But it does hurt to see what guys like Sam Darnold and Daniel Jones are doing, having let them both out the building this most recent year. It's tough. All right, C. Banjo, what's up, my man? C says, hi, Andrew. In a full PPR, I'm 5-2. Should I go YOLO BTJ as my wide receiver? 3 starting wide receivers, Puka, Ladd, and BTJ. I have Pearsall too. Also Loveland or Theo. I'm so confused about this YOLO BTJ question because BTJ doesn't play this week. And I'm sure you understand that both Puka Nacua and BTJ are out on bye this week. So if you're asking if you should remain with BTJ as your wide receiver through rest of season, I would say yes. Remain as such. Keep it going. You'll be fine. And Pearsall, once healthy, which is not this week, will eventually be of value. I'm not sure when that'll be, though. Also, Loveland or Theo Johnson. I would rather have Loveland as of right now. Loveland was one of the players that I considered putting in my top 16 tight end rankings this week, primarily because Cole Kmet's dealing with an injury, and in the event in which Kmet does end up missing, besides the fact that this most recent week Colston Loveland outsnapped him, they're taking on Baltimore, which is an advantageous matchup for tight ends thus far this season. Thank you. Spencer James says, in a 12-team full PPR, I'm 4-3. My question's in the chat. Thanks. Okay. Says I started Quentin Johnston and I wanted to drop him. Flex is a huge problem for my team. I have Dak Herbert. Okay, so basically we should probably, unless you're playing in a 2 QB league, probably look at the move one of these two quarterbacks for the value which they're presenting. Jonathan Taylor, Bucky Irving, Bam Knight, DJ Giddens. You know what's interesting? Giddens, even if JT was to go down, I feel like Amir Abdullah would get himself a lot of run in that backfield, which is quite, I would say, a considerable amount considering what we've seen lately. Anyway, Brashard Smith, Harvey, Benson, with CD, Rice, Quentin Johnston, Booty, Warren, Aubrey. Any ideas to fix the flex position? QJ likely lost me the week. Yeah, Quentin Johnston obviously has not been the most foremost kind of leading receiver for this offense for quite a while since he went down with the hamstring injury. Obviously, the overall game plan has revolved around Justin Herbert waking up to the fact that he loves to throw the ball to Ladd McConkey and Keenan Allen, and that has kind of been the primary kind of go about as kind of Gadsden really is taking over that number 2, number 3 role. Doesn't really matter, whichever way we go about it. Ultimately, looking at your team, if we can move a quarterback in order to accomplish bringing in a better flex, that's how you would go about it. So you'd have to find a team in your league in which, assuming this is a 1 QB format, in which you have an opportunity of moving one of these two quarterbacks, getting a quarterback in, getting back a flexible option in return. Considering, let's say it's a full PPR, I'd be more in line with trying to pick up a wide receiver. If it's a half PPR, potentially a running back could be something that you would want on roster, considering, yes, you have like a ridiculous volume of depth here, but not a lot of game changers here. Really just kind of flex. They're not even flex pieces. It's just depth for the case of like injuries. Otherwise, these guys don't really have any value. So I wouldn't mind the idea of going after any running backs or a wide receiver. Just go find a team that has a quarterback need and see what they have as an, kind of outlier piece that they'd be willing to ship off to you in exchange for one of these two quarterbacks that have been balling out. Thank you. All right, we had a question that came in from Andrew Gonzalez. Says Roma Dunze, Drake London, Alvin Kamara for Scadaboo and Puka Nacua. Okay. Full PPR lineup would be Herbert, Gibbs, Henry, Puka, Garrett Wilson, McBride, Scat, and I have Hunter and Terry McLaurin coming off the bench. All in all, I think anytime you're able to theoretically trade for the number 1 wide receiver in fantasy, assuming Puka Nacua comes back, I don't mind the trade based on the depth that you have at wide receiver, running back, etc. Yeah, ultimately, I don't mind this trade. I think you have enough depth to where when I look at this starting roster and I think to myself, all right, well, I've got 2 top, theoretically 8 running backs, the number 1 wide receiver, another top 12 one, assuming he stays healthy. McBride's a top 3 tight end. Scadaboo's a top 12 running back. And then I have a couple other pieces that really haven't been able to find their upside yet, as Terry's been injured and is only going to get better as we proceed. And Hunter's only continuing to build as an offensive role here. Theoretically speaking, I think you are paying at a premium price for these two. But I mean, it makes sense considering the production they've put forth to where this is kind of looking like a 2-for-2 trade where Kamara's just kind of like the toss-in just to make sure it gets done. I don't mind it. I'm okay with that, Andrew Gonzalez. I think that works for you. Thank you. Anonymous says in a half PPR, I drop Jennings or Spears for Shakir. Well, at this moment, I'm thinking to myself, do I want Juwan Jennings on roster? To which, if Pearsall's going to continue to miss time, I would probably venture to say yes. Am I confident in that idea? I mean, the thing is, like, he's already dealing with his own injury, so Jennings isn't the greatest play anyway, especially this week with the Houston matchup against those cornerbacks. I don't love it. As we get closer to the trade deadline, Spears becomes a potential value piece, assuming Tony Pollard gets shipped anywhere, but ultimately, I'm not really going to bank on a trade occurring, so I'd probably drop Spears in order to pick up Shakir here. Says I'm in a 14-team half PPR, drop Spears, Jennings, Hendy, or Love for Shakir. Starting Love I'd keep Love just to, prepare for next week's bye week. Spears would probably be the drop in this circumstance as we proceed. Thank you. PC says PPR rank them. Pierce with Downs, healthy. Noel or Woody. Okay. Under the assumption that Josh Downs is healthy, which I'm assuming should be the case, clearing concussion protocol in the week. I think the only question remains, like, in regards to Jalen Noel, is Nico Collins available and is Christian Kirk available? If both of them are out, I probably play Noel there. And then I would play Woody second. Then I would play Pierce third. In the event in which Nico Collins does end up playing this week, I'm playing Woody 1, Pierce 2, and then Noel 3. Thank you. Rock Trevino sends in a question. Says, should I trade Saquon Barkley for Derrick Henry? I would. Genuinely, I would. I think I would rather have Derrick Henry. The upcoming schedule ahead is a lot more advantageous than what Saquon currently has cooking up within that overall offense. The fact that Derrick Henry's already also passed his bye week leads me to believe that they are in a far better position to succeed. I've talked about it ad nauseum already over the course of the last 3 weeks here. Derrick Henry's upcoming schedule is an incredibly advantageous position to be in, and I'm very much so excited about what the potential looks like with the returning Lamar Jackson, and also the most valuable piece of this offense that has low-key been kind of forgotten about. It's Patrick Ricard, their fullback. They have played without him this entire season thus far. And getting back Patrick Ricard means a lot more opportunities for running lanes for Derrick Henry. All right, let's see here. 5-2 in a 10-man full PPR league. Okay, my running backs are Cook, Hall, and Rachaad White, Ramondre Stevenson. Okay, pretty solid running back crew here, to say the very least. Wide receivers are Sutton, Higgins, and Debo. Also had and traded Nico and Rico for Kyron and BTJ. Is that an okay trade? Considering the overall circumstance of how this backfield in Carolina is transitioning, I'd like to assume that Rico is going to be probably a lesser option than Kyron, just purely on the split between Rico and, of course, Chuba Hubbard. But considering how heavy of a run approach this Carolina Panthers offense has kind of explored lately, I think if Kyron doesn't start scoring touchdowns anytime soon, Rico could genuinely be more valuable because he also inhibits a little bit of that receiving workload as well. So this, I'm going to, on paper, say it's probably still Kyron going forward. As for BTJ and Nico, again, I would like to assume that Nico is the guy, primarily because it's a pass-heavy offense, because the running game just doesn't find much success at all. And then additionally, on top of that, Nico doesn't have as much target competition in comparison to BTJ, who's coming off a week in which Parker Washington and additionally Travis Hunter both had over 10 targets themselves, and eventually will also get back who was, their former number one receiving option of the Jaguars offense, which is Brenton Strange. So theoretically speaking, like, on paper, this could be the answer, but I think it's balanced overall. I think the Kyron BTJ side on paper in terms of potential for success in the future is a little bit more higher of an upside potential in my mind. So I like the idea of going that direction. But in comparison to the rest of your team, I mean, Sutton, Higgins, and Debo probably started over BTJ rest of the way. And then in regards to Cook, Hall, I mean, even Ramondre, there can be conversations in regards to, between them and Kyron on a weekly basis. We know we're playing Cook. Hall would play in advantageous matchups. Same thing with Ramondre, who, quite frankly, both are more reliable than Kyron at the moment. So it just feels like all four of these pieces, in comparison to what you have, are just kind of filler depth until they find consistency. So I'm okay with the trade. Tan Fam sends in a question, says, I've got Ladd McConkey and Devontae Smith. Got Ladd McConkey plus Devontae Smith for Charbonnet 3 weeks ago. I'm 3-3, half PPR. My team is JD5, Ladd McConkey, Devontae Smith, CeeDee Lamb, Wan'Dale Robinson, Bucky Irving, Jalen Warren, Kyle Monangai, Ingram. Do I need a trade for a running back? Well, I mean, as of right now, you've got so much ridiculous wide receiver depth that if you are able to start 2 wide receivers and 1 flex, maybe we should look to, I mean, honestly, I think I'm holding on to all 4 of these unless I can legitimately get back a stud RB. And the reason why I'm primarily kind of revolving around that is because you're going to have upcoming bye weeks here, right? Like, let me see here. NFL bye weeks. All right, so for the upcoming teams that you have currently on a roster here, so Dallas Cowboys have an upcoming bye in week 10. So you have to prepare for that. And I think having Wan'Dale Robinson on roster would definitely be helpful. The Philadelphia Eagles have a week 9 bye. So holding on to Wan'Dale Robinson until then, very much so helpful. Of course, the Buccaneers have a week 9 bye. Let's see, when do the Chargers have a bye? In your case, week 12. So you'll need that. Yeah, I think keeping all 4 wide receivers is very much so vital because you're going to want to fill in Wan'Dale Robinson for one of these 3 as we proceed here. I think that is going to be of a kind of primary focus, to which if you're going to have to ship away one of these one of these wide receivers in order to get back a running back, sure, I'm more than happy to do so, but I'd probably be looking to move Wan'Dale Robinson in order to accomplish that, to which I think to myself, am I going to get enough in return? I'd probably assume you won't, unless someone's going to give you like Chase Brown or Alvin Kamara or somebody of that exchange, which I think, I mean, shoot, I'd take that. J.K. Dobbins, please and thank you. If those kind of potential options are available out there, maybe, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt could be a potential buy low candidate. If you can, land within those positions for Wan'Dale Robinson half PPR, I would say yes, let's make that move in order to bolster up RB. You'll still have flexible, positioning there, and you can start them henceforth until Bucky Irving returns. And it also gives you more depth of the position in case anything happens due to injury. But in the event in which you cannot, I just keep it as is and just keep rolling with Warren and Monangai, considering both are past their buys until Bucky returns in week 10. Thank you. Flotation sends in a question, says, chat. Okay. Says the guy has Higgins, Abuka, Rice, Lamb, and Achane. Better option for trade, T-Law trade. I don't think I can get Lamb. No, I don't think you can get Lamb either, but I would rather try to get either Rice or Abuka. Like in a super flex format, quarterback is incredibly valuable to the point to where maybe you offer him Jackson. Well, no, you can't offer Jackson there because we have to win now. I would like to get one of these two. In the event in which you have to give a receiver as well alongside of Trevor Lawrence in order to secure maybe Abuka and or Rice, that would be very much so appealing to me. That's kind of my thought process at the moment. Yeah, I don't think you're going to be able to get Lamb, but if you can try to secure Abuka or Rice, I mean, how much of an incredible position would that be going forward here? I think that's something that I'm very much so interested in. Obviously, both of them have an upcoming bye here, which definitely hurts, but I'm just looking for rest of season value, and those two would be the ones that I try to focus on. If I look at your roster and I look at like what you theoretically could offer in this circumstance, I think it very much so will depend upon like what they have available to theoretically desire in an upcoming trade. I mean, yeah, theoretically you could just like toss DJ Moore alongside of it and see if it'll make it, make it work. If it doesn't, then yeah. If they're not really interested in shipping off Abuka Rice and this is what the best option that you can get for Trevor Lawrence, then so be it. We'll take it because honestly, it's going to help no matter what. Thank you. All right, let's see here. We had a question from Easy E. Says, you the man. Questions in the chat. Thank you, Easy. Says, dude, took your advice and started Gadsden, but Quentin Johnston got me squat. What the crap am I going to do with Quentin Johnston? Yeah, look, so Gadsden is going to be this good rest of the season. I would venture to say that's probably going to be the case, assuming their offensive game planning continues to revolve around him being such a highly utilized piece in terms of his overall snap counts, in terms of the overall routes that he is running. Again, he is pretty much at this point, I mentioned it the other day, like genuinely, when we talk about wide receivers that transition to playing tight end, it reminds me of Darren Waller. It almost looks like him out there. It's just like a perfect combination, primarily because if you guys remember, like all those years ago when Greg Roman was the OC of the Ravens, they had Waller on that team. And then obviously he had his situation where he had to leave football for a little bit there. But I mean, Greg Roman knows what he's doing and obviously found a little bit of a gem here in the draft. But in terms of rest season, yeah, he'll be really solid. I think this is the year really of like stud tight ends really breaking out. Like I haven't seen this many weekly waiver wire pickups at tight end in a long time. Usually it's like the tight end position is dead. This season it's been the most plentiful it's ever been in years that I can remember. Now, as for what Quentin Johnston, until he starts getting legitimate target opportunity in terms of a consistent share of like 6+ targets a week, just got to leave him on the bench unless the opportunity via a matchup provides kind of a little bit more incentive for us to play him. It just basically, he reverts to where he was last year, where you're hoping he scores a touchdown, and if he doesn't, he's not worth anything. Full PPR, Worthy or Shaheed? I'd rather play Worthy. Again, when we're talking about the hierarchy of targets within that offense, even though the most two recent games, the touches for Worthy have not been up to par, it's primarily because they were blowing out their opponents. In the case of this week, I think Worthy will be a little bit more valuable, primarily because I do anticipate him still to be the number 2 receiving option behind Rashee Rice and ahead of Travis Kelce, and he will get rushing opportunities in comparison to Rashid Shaheed. Again, there is an opportunity here and there in which he could make a singular play his entire week, but evidently I think Worthy is a more valuable kind of piece in that situation, primarily because of the volume of touchdowns that the Chiefs continue to score over the course of the last 4 games here. Also, is Tootin droppable? I do believe so, yes. I do have ETN. Yeah, I mean, even with ETN on roster, Tootin is really just not built enough of a kind of progressive overload of kind of touches over the course of the season thus far for me to feel convinced that he's going to get more workload anytime soon outside of an injury. So it's also in a half PPR. Is AJ Brown playing? To be determined by tomorrow. Once we end up seeing the practice report in regards to how much he's dealing with that hamstring injury. If he is limited tomorrow, expect him to play. If he does not practice tomorrow, I would assume this is a Devontae Smith 30-point performance upcoming here against the New York Giants. But yeah, who knows? We're going to have to wait and see until tomorrow. If not, do I drop Hunter to replace AJ Brown? I mean, if that's your best drop, then sure. Otherwise, you could also drop theoretically Shaheed. Well, no, you should drop Tootin in order to accomplish picking up the replacement for AJ Brown. I think that should be accomplished first and foremost. Thank you. Joshua sends in a question. Joshua says, someone dropped Benson. Is he worth any fab percentage? I think he is worth like maybe 6%. And the reason why I primarily want to throw out that number is because when I think about the overall potential of production from him, this backfield could be a upcoming committee situation. And even if it's not, I don't really love the overall upcoming schedule for Benson in specific. They've got some really difficult matchups. The assumption is that he should return either week 9 or 10. So you would get a starting running back in the NFL. So yes, maybe it's actually worth more depending on the necessity for running back. But when I look at the upcoming schedule of having to take on like Seattle, Jacksonville, Tampa Bay, Los Angeles Rams, Houston, Atlanta, those are some of the most difficult running back matchups you can possibly have. Now, in the event in which Benson is racking receiving receptions in a full PPR, totally worth having. But if you're playing in a half, he may not be a top 30 option in majority of these games, primarily because of those matchups isolated. But as of right now, if you're in a super desperate position for running back depth, considering he should be returning, I would assume week 9 or 10, because they did say he was going to be missing 4 to 5 weeks with the arthroscopic knee surgery where they went in and cleaned it up. If you're in desperate need of a running back, let's rip maybe even upwards of 15% in order to get some depth on roster to be able to kind of accommodate for the lack of depth you may have, or because of the upcoming bye weeks you'll be facing. Could even be a higher percentage depending on truly how desperate you are at RB. But when I look at the upcoming schedule here, again, I think to myself, do I want to start a running back against Seattle, Jacksonville, Tampa Bay, LA Rams, Atlanta? Those are matchups that scare the living shit out of me. That is when we're talking about a non-PPR league. Santos sends in a question, says, Kyren or Henry rest season? I'd rather just have Henry, genuinely. When Kyren Williams, his number one value point over the course of the last 2 seasons, guys, has been rushing touchdowns. Amongst all players in the National Football League, over the course of 2023 and 2024, he had the most red zone rushing touchdowns inside the 5-yard line. And thus far this season, that has not held true, primarily because the red zone has specifically been dominated by the tight end position and by Devontae Adams within this offense. Therefore, if we're going to continue to receive a lack of opportunity within the most valuable position for running back, which is inside the 5-yard line, I mean, what are we going to expect for Kyren to produce if he's not given those opportunities? Like, even though theoretically speaking, he technically is number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He has the 6th most attempts inside the 5-yard line this season. He technically still only has 2 rushing touchdowns inside the 5, to which at the moment, I'd probably rather position myself with the trending offense of where Henry and the Baltimore Ravens are going, rather than what Kyren and this offensive play calling has looked like down in the red zone this season thus far. Which, I mean, obviously they could change. It doesn't say that it has to. It doesn't mean that it has to be permanent based on how it has gone thus far. But again, history kind of implies what the potential of the future is going to entail as we proceed. So I'd lean towards Henry for now. Carlos Z says, Andrew, I'm cooked. Week 8. My opponent has Jamar Chase, Achane, Jonathan Taylor. I started Quentin Johnston, the friendly ghost. Yeah. Oh, Casper, the friendly ghost. I'm 3-4.5 PPR. I'm venting. Questions in the chat. Yeah, let's hear it. So should I panic? No, I don't think you should panic. Look, 3-5 is not a terrible start. Even if you were to lose this week, 3-5 is still very much so manageable to make the playoffs. Again, in a league in which, let's say, for example, you're in a 12-team league and 6 teams make the playoffs, you genuinely just need 7 wins to make the playoffs, to which if you were to lose this week, you'll have week 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. You'll have 6 games to where you need to just win 4 of the next 6. Very much so a manageable opportunity to find success, especially with many teams dealing with their own apocalypses and injuries, etc. So I'm not too worried about a 3-5 start in your scenario. I'm not panicking here. It says I can still make the playoffs. Absolutely. 10-team league. Oh, it's even easier than 10-team league, in fact. So if you're in a 10-team league and 6 teams make the playoffs, I think, yeah, 7 wins can get it done, especially assuming you have enough points scored for. I don't know if you guys play in divisions. Depends if you're on ESPN or if you're on Sleeper or what your overall format is. But I think 7 wins can get the job done. So I'm not really giving up on hope as of yet. I've seen many of times, shoot, I've even seen it where teams that have like 6 wins make the playoffs because of like a 10-way tie in there. I mean, well, technically that's in a bigger league, but in the case of I've seen crazier stuff. So don't even worry about it. Don't trip. Says I'm trying to pick up Algier, Hendo. My running backs are weak with Genty, JCM, and K9. Yeah, your running backs are your biggest issue at the moment, to where like Kenneth Walker should probably be looked to be shipped off if you can while you're on your bye week here, because even if he returns, I mean, Charbonnet is really just cooking him on a weekly basis, to where picking up a Hendo and hoping that maybe perhaps after you trade K9, he gets some sort of value for the rest of the season could be a potential. But I'm not panicking at the moment, Carlos. Thank you, appreciate it. Jonathan, what's up, my man? Says I'm 7-0. I'm in a 12-team league. I got offered Lamar Jackson for my Jalen Hurts and T. Higgins. I got Christian McCaffrey, Achane, Henry, Waddle, Devontae Smith, Quentin Johnston, Goddard, Dowdle. My handcuffs are Christian McCaffrey. Okay. Should I bite? I don't think you need to. Considering your wide receiver depth consists of this and Quentin Johnston doing what he's doing as of late, I think you're probably in the best position to just keep what you have. Obviously, there is a relatively significant difference between Jalen Hurts and Lamar Jackson and their potential, but Lamar Jackson can very easily re-aggravate that hamstring injury and leave you in the dust, while T. Higgins with Quentin Johnston playing the way he has, I think I'd rather keep what you currently have on roster. You're 7-0 for a reason. Keep it rolling, my man. Side Chance says, trade Rico for and get DK Metcalf. My running backs are Jacobs, Brees, Hampton, White, Bill, Marks. Wide receivers are Amon-Ra, Pearsall. Yes, I would make this trade. Just purely off of the lack of depth you have at wide receiver and the fact that DK Metcalf has already passed his bye week, I would say yes, I'm willing to make this trade. Thank you. Jeff sends in a question. Thank you, Jeff. Says in a 12-team full PPR, which backup running back would you most be willing to depart with? Tootin, Brian Robinson, or Corum? Tootin would probably be the guy that I'm most likely to depart with as it currently stands. Because when I think of the backfields of the LA Rams and the 49ers, they are theoretically more valuable than the backfield of the Jacksonville Jaguars at the moment. So I'd rather hold these two pieces comparatively to Tootin here. Thank you. Jocelyn sends in a follow-up. Okay, let's see here. Here we go. It says 2 trade offers. My Marvin Harrison Jr. and Judkins for their Garrett Wilson and JCM. Okay, interesting trade. I'm very intrigued. It says Diggs and Charbonnet for Hollywood and Dart. My key players are Darnold, Mariota, and Fields. Okay, Derrick Henry, Christian McCaffrey, Bowers, J-Mo, Travion Henderson, and Wan'Dale Robinson. Okay, so theoretically moving Marvin Harrison and Judkins for Garrett Wilson and JCM. Okay, so here's the thought process. If you're playing in a full PPR format, which you are, it seems, full PPR 3-4, 14-team league, should I make any moves or stay put? Should have been 5-2, but I've had a couple dud performances. Okay, so considering the circumstance in which you're in, and there goes my YouTube crashing. Not a big deal. I'm going to go ahead and reload that right now, and then I'll pop that up on screen just once again. Appreciate y'all guys coming through. Again, if you guys are coming through here over the course of the next, you've just jumped in recently, welcome. Hope you guys are doing well. I understand this was the most boring Thursday night game of the season, but hey, hopefully we'll continue to progress towards more exciting games as we proceed here But hopefully you were on the right side of history in regards to some of the more, impactful performances. Hopefully you weren't the one getting burnt tonight by Quentin Johnston, but I know many of you were, unfortunately. Okay, let's see here. In regards to the trade here as a whole, like Judkins, I'm willing to depart with. I think if I'm going to make a trade, I move for Garrett Wilson and JCM. But look, my only concern revolves around Garrett Wilson's not going to play this week. Marvin Harrison's not going to play this week. And am I willing to make, well, I guess you can theoretically just, you know what? I would rather have the Garrett Wilson and JCM combo rest of the way. I would. In a PPR, I understand you're 3 and 4. I think you have a strong enough roster to be able to sustain a trade like this. That's the trade that I would prefer to make. Outside of that, I could justify the Diggs and Charbonnet trade, but I won't. I'd rather have Garrett Wilson, genuinely. Thank you. Mason Schaefer says in a half PPR, Diggs, Waddle, Wandell, Wilson. Drop any 4 BTJ. If I was going to drop any of these options for Brian Thomas Jr., it would be Wandell Robinson. That's who would get dropped. Thank you. Mr. Tresero Cinco says, my boy, in a full point PPR, Golden, Mims, Noel, Austin, as in Calvin Austin, or Higgins. If that's Jaden Higgins and not obviously T. Higgins, because you know to play T. Higgins, under the assumption that that is the case, I'm leaning towards playing Noel under the assumption that Nico Collins and Christian Kirk missed this week. In the event in which neither of those two miss, or at least one of them plays, then at that point, I'd probably just play Marvin Mims over the group. Thank you. Easy E has a question. Says, I have a question in the chat. Okay. Says, thoughts on my team. I'm currently 5-2 and I'm in second place with 3 wide receiver superflex format. My quarterbacks are Nix and Flacco and Bryce Young. McCarthy. Wide receivers are JSN, Quentin Johnston, Agbuka, Tez Johnson. Running backs are Brian Robinson, JJ, Josh Jacobs. Not sure why you would mention Brian Robinson being your running back. I'm so confused about that. Gadsden, Pinheiro, Colts for this week only, then Seattle for rest of season, and Tampa Bay for playoffs. Okay, for the defense. Okay. I mean, I'm just confused about your running back position here. That's my only thoughts on this matter. Like, obviously in a superflex format, you have the quarterbacks to be able to sustain the remainder of the season. Your wide receivers are solid. Your running backs, I mean, JJ's good. Gadsden is great, but Brian Robinson? Like, who's your other starting running back here, Easy? All right, let's see here. We had Kent who says, my guy, am I cooked? I'm in a 12-team league, PPR Yahoo. I'm 5-2 and I'm on a 2-loss streak. Again, don't even panic. You're chilling. You have such an incredible chance of making the playoffs. If you're in a league where 8 teams make the playoffs, I mean, you are pretty much just need to win 2 more games and you make the playoffs with certainty. If you're playing in a league in which 6 teams make the playoffs, you just need to win 3 out of the next, 7 weeks here, and you're in pretty good shape. In regards to the potential options you have available to you in terms of on roster, Dart until Daniels is healthy, Puka, Ricky, Ridley, Slayton. Okay, so basically your wide receiver position's cooked. But again, I don't mind taking a 3rd loss in a row here. It's not a big deal. You're still in second place. You have Genty, Pollard, Spears, Manungai. Yeah, you're basically just gonna, don't worry about this week. Take the loss. On Sunday, do something else. Go play some pickleball, go to the mall, get some rest, play some video game, do something else. Don't watch the games this weekend because it's not going to, I don't think you're getting it dubbed this week, primarily because everyone's either hurt on your team or on bye. So in regards to the future of the season, though, it's definitely not looking good. I will admit that. I think you may be a candidate to where you have to ship off Puka Nacua. Because when I look at this wide receiver depth, with all the injuries and inconsistency here, and then I look at your running back depth, I mean, like Genty and JCM will live. Puka's fine until you find a number 2 wide receiver. I might be in the business of selling Jaden Daniels right now and just keeping Dart for the rest of the year. That might be where I'm at right now. Trying to move Daniels in order to go get a wide receiver and see if somebody's willing to pay for Daniels. And if they're not, then you just got to kind of maybe position yourself to sell Puka for 2 wide receivers and keep it moving. That might be the play because, sheesh, you are thin. You are very thin at the moment. That's my thoughts on the matter, Ken. Thank you. Christian K sends in a question. Christian, thank you, sir. Says, rank my quarterbacks this week. Fields if he plays. Not expecting it, but even if he does, I'm not interested. Penix / Cousins. Mariota. Full PP. Okay, so right now, Mariota would be number 1. Under the assumption that, well, okay, so here's my thought process on the matter, okay? I'm going to pair up Fields and, okay, look, this is where I currently have it ranked. Between the available options, I'd go Mariota number 1, Tyrod Taylor number 2, assuming he plays. If it's Fields, I'd probably leapfrog him to playing Penix or Cousins before I play Fields. Okay, so that's the way I'd go about it in that order. Also, PPR, flex this week, Algier, JCM, or Shakir. As of right now, I'm probably leaning towards playing Shakir. I'd like to get my stable 5 catches, 50 yards, give me my 10 points, and not let me worry about it. Primarily, yeah, that's kind of the direction that I'm leaning in. This requires a touchdown. This requires a touchdown. I'm leaning towards Shakir as my auto play there. Thank you. Eric says, help me. I need a running back in a flex and a full PPR, but 1 point per 10 yards receiving, 1 point for 5 yards rushing. Kyle Monungai, Tyjae Spears, RJ Harvey, Mason Taylor. Thanks. Yeah, even with the current format, like the way that I see it, it's Mason Taylor at flex and Kyle Monungai at running back. That's just the easy play this week. Thank you. Mo Money says PPR, Adams or Rome rest of season. I want to say that the answer is Rome, but the position in which Adams is in, playing within one of the best passing attacks in the National Football League, the streak at which Matthew Stafford is on, this is the best Matthew Stafford that we have seen since 2021, the Super Bowl season. So the way that he is trending, it makes me think that I want to have a piece of the offense to where Adams could theoretically be that answer because of the touchdown consistency at which he is producing at. Now, a couple weeks ago, I would have told you, well, Rome Odunze's consistency at touchdowns is just as comparable to where I'm probably leaning that way, but as of late, the matchups have really been, hey, we can just run the ball and win. And when I look at their upcoming weeks here against Cincy, the New York Giants, Minnesota, I mean, genuinely, they can continue to do the same where they run the ball and win games. To which I think I'd rather genuinely have Devontae Adams at the moment. Judkins or Saquon rest of season, I'd rather have Saquon still. I'd rather have a piece of the Eagles offense than the Cleveland Browns offense. Also, who do I drop for Pacheco? Algier, Travion Henderson, or Brashard Smith? Brashard Smith is the drop. Thank you. Easy E sends in a follow-up. Let's see what you had here, brother. Says, is Pearsall worth picking up? I think it's worth picking up, but don't expect him to play for another 2 weeks, genuinely. The fact that he has not practiced this week leads me to believe that even if he practices at a limited participation next week, he'll be limited to play to where you wouldn't start him until probably week 10 at the earliest. So unless you are going to pick him up as a futures pickup, that's the only reason that you're looking forward to him. It's from weeks 10 and beyond if you're going to need him to fill in for potential bye weeks, injuries, etc. as such. Otherwise, the injury really did derail his season here. Nick sends in a question. It says start 3, Waddle, Olave, Ibuka, and Sutton. You have really good options here. If I'm going to start 3, it's these 3 players. Ibuka's number 1, Sutton's number 2, Olave's number 3. These are 3 studs. I auto start all 3 of them. Waddle, primarily because of the struggles of the offense of the Dolphins and the matchup against AJ Terrell. I believe he is a lesser option in comparison to the alternative 3 options who are all top tier, top 10 options at the wide receiver position this week. Thank you. Okay, we've caught up effectively. Hope you guys are doing well. I'm going to go ahead and hop into the live chat, answer a couple more questions here. We've been live for about 47 minutes here, so I'll continue to answer a couple more questions for the next 5-10 minutes here, and then we're going to close it out. I do appreciate you all coming through. Thank you. Ed sends in a question. It says, Baker, Kyron, Tedero, and McMillan for Mahomes, Henry, or Cook? T-Mac just rotting on my bench. Also, we'll get a quarterback wide receiver stack with Rashee Rice, PPR quarterback 2, May, RB2, Etienne, RB3, Warren. Yeah, look, I don't mind this trade under the assumption that Tedero McMillan is never going to see your starting lineup. You get a quarterback upgrade and you get a running back upgrade. I don't mind whether it's Henry or Cook. They're both past their bye weeks. I can justify starting either of the 2 rest of the way. In fact, I would probably even venture to say rest of season, they should be similar value. I think I do prefer Henry just based on where the do I want? No, it's a little bit more risky there. I think I'd probably go Mahomes and James Cook just because of where Lamar's at. If he gets hurt again, like it's over. It's a derailed season. I don't see that happening with the Bills. So I'd rather just go Mahomes and Cook, stay with the safety there, get this, the stable points, and let's keep it rolling there. Trade Diggs for Addison or BTJ. If you were theoretically going to make a trade in which you're sending away Diggs, I think it's very much so. It depends, right? Because we haven't seen Addison play with JJ McCarthy. We assume that he'll still continue to be the number 2. But if I was going to make the trade, I position myself to where I think I genuinely just keep Diggs. I don't know if I make that trade, genuinely. I think I just keep it as is. If you wanted to go for BTJ or Addison, you can. I think it's only going to get better for Diggs as we proceed here. Once those touchdowns start to lock in, which, I mean, they will eventually, I think it's going to be worth it. I'm cooked at RB this week. I have to start Isaiah Davis and Brashard Smith over Harvey and Henderson. What do you think, half PPR? I just don't understand the logic behind starting Isaiah Davis at all. I just don't get that one. If you can explain it to me, that would be greatly appreciated, because when I look at this overall workload of opportunity lately, I mean, he just doesn't get enough touches for me to even consider him to be a startable option. Now, the same thing exists for Harvey and Henderson, to which I would say, like, let's look to go find somebody else. And if nobody else is out there and available, theoretically speaking, if players such as, throwing it out there, Kenneth Gainwell, not available, Tyrone Tracy Jr., not available, Jeremy McNichols, not available, then sure, we can go with Isaiah Davis there. Let's see here. Johnny says, should I trade Scat and A.J. Brown for CeeDee Lamb? I probably wouldn't. No. Unless A.J. Brown's injury is legitimately going to hold him out for another month because it's a hamstring and it's serious, unless it's something of that nature. I mean, you could theoretically, like, if you have an inside scoop and you want to send it, sure, but I don't know if it's that severe to where I'm making that much of a trade here. The Jeek22 says, in a 10-team full PPR, I just traded Keenan Allen, Mason Kraft for Bucky Irving and Wanda Robinson. Okay, yeah, I don't have an issue with that trade at all. Yeah, you're good. I think that's a great trade for the future. You get Bucky Irving, which is the running back depth you require. You're getting rid of Mason here. Kraft, again, is the biggest piece that you're theoretically losing in this circumstance, but ultimately you're getting back Bucky Irving, which is the kind of highlight piece of the entire trade. Kamikaze says, what's up, Drew? I'm start 3 out of Terry McLaurin, Pearsall. If he plays, he's not going to play. Jalen Warren, Tedder McMillan. I think the answer is purely just the situation you're in. Start Terry, start Jalen Warren, start Tedder McMillan. Pearsall's not going to play this week. Also, start Dart over Caleb. I would start Dart over Caleb purely off of rushing statistics. Maddie says, do you see Gadsden a plug and play for rest of season? Absolutely. Is he over Kittle full PPR? I would say probably. Earlier today in my my full PPR rankings, I still had him behind Kittle. I mean, again, I think Kittle is going to be a lot more improved in comparison to what he presented this most recent week, because I do anticipate to see Purdy back, and their combination has been just really so successful over the course of the season. Something that I mentioned in my episode earlier today when I talked about quarterbacks and tight ends that I would like to repeat, just so that we're all on the same page of the value at which George Kittle presents for rest of season, just so that for those of you who are potentially doubting what Kittle can provide, besides the fact that, again, he's been one of the best tight ends in the history of fantasy football, we're talking about in the last 16 games in which he has played healthy. There's only been 2 games where he is ranked outside of the top 12 of weekly fantasy tight end rankings. So weeks 1 through, the last 15 healthy games. So 1 through 17 of last year, okay? And then week 1 of this season. Only 2 games in which he ranked out of the top 12 of those individual weeks and a half PPR. Otherwise, 10 of those 16 games, he has been a top 6 weekly tight end start. That's how successful he has been and how successful he will eventually be this season in due time, hopefully beginning this week here. Also, Terry over DJ Moore. Yes, I would play Terry McLaurin over DJ Moore, assuming he's healthy and gets a full participation of practice by Saturday afternoon. Kent, what's up, my man? Says, let me see here. Says, give up Puka for Rashi and Judkins or Bucky. Interesting. I mean, I'd probably rather have Bucky and Rashi Rice here. Never mind, he told me to kick rocks. Okay, never mind. Keep it moving. All right, Pedro, what's up? Says, I got an offer, Genty for Addison and Ramondre Stevenson. Should I do it? You would get Genty and you'd be sending away Addison and Ramondre. Here's the issue that I have with Genty. Even though I do believe the talent is effectively there, I don't know if the scheme nor the talent that needs to be around him are effectively there to the level to which I would feel super confident making that trade. To which right now, I'm thinking for right now, if you've got studs across the board and we got a legitimate wide receiver depth where Addison doesn't hurt moving, then yes, I take the risk. Otherwise, no. Is Neal worth a pickup, second or third round pick? Well, Neal is going to be the backup to Kamara, to where if anything happens to Kamara, theoretically he would be the RB1 of that offense. So I guess theoretically, if you want to handcuff it, you can. Outside of that, I don't know if he's going to get enough opportunities this week outright. I have Josh Jacobs, Christian McCaffrey, Marvin Harrison, Hunter, and Ricky at wide receiver with Gadsden at tight end. It's a really good, that's a pretty roster. Marvin Harrison is really the biggest issue here. Travis Hunter is an issue. Ricky Pearsall is an issue. So that's your biggest problem is wide receivers, to say the very least here. Should I trade Scat and AJ Brown for CeeDee Lamb? I understand. Look, okay. So considering what your roster currently, revolves around, no, I don't make this trade because I need to start Christian McCaffrey, Josh Jacobs, and Scatterbo every week as my 2 RBs in flex. And by trading away 2 players, you're losing incredible volumes of depth, to which I need to be able to compensate for my flex being a strong player because my wide receiver 2 is going to suck next to AJ Brown. So I have to play AJ Brown, then I can play matchups with Marv, Henry, or Ricky as we proceed. I keep what you have. Andrew, your thoughts on Christian Watson? I have him in my IR slot. Keep him there, Charlene. Primarily because, again, even though he does play this week, he is still coming off of the ACL, to which he's going to be limited in his overall utilization. He'll probably get a couple deep shots here and there over the course of the this week, and as we proceed, it should be enough opportunity to where he should get an expansion of workload. Let's see here. And again, eventually, we will also see the return of Jaden Reed. I think it's going to get a little bit messy there in Green Bay in terms of being able to start wide receivers. But, Tucker Kraft will be the outright. Like, he's always going to be on the field no matter what the overall kind of situation is there. Trade away Jalen Warren for Marks and Brees. If you need, running back depth that badly, sure. In the event in which you can survive without it, I think I'd rather just have Jalen Warren because I just don't like the mess that this is. Hey, Andrew, just joining the stream. Where did you have let's see. There it is. Gadsden was my number 5 this week. Pretty solid play. I'm glad those of you who saw the video from earlier today went in that direction. What defenses do you like in the next couple weeks? In terms of defenses for the next couple weeks, I think it's just a matter of who's playing Miami, who's playing Cleveland, that's kind of who's playing the Jets. I think that's kind of how we have to just position ourselves upcoming here. We want to take advantage who's playing the Titans, right? So if I look at the upcoming schedule for the Tennessee Titans, they play against the Chargers, the Texans, the Seahawks, the Jaguars, right? You can get a piece of all those action and just continue to stream one of those. A lot of those are already rostered, but still. The idea of playing anybody against the Titans, anybody against the Raiders, anybody against the Jets, always very much so a plausible play. Outside of that, that's basically kind of going to be it. There could be a discussion in regards to you could play anybody against the Dolphins as well, like I mentioned earlier. So that's really just going to be kind of the approach as we proceed here. Ravens get Miami next week. Exactly. Perfect. Isaiah Davis is good if Brees Hall gets traded. Yeah, that's the thing. But starting him this week just kind of scares me. That's my only concern here. Half PPR Kincaid or Diggs? I'd rather just play Diggs, primarily because Kincaid's still dealing with his injury. He may not even play. Thoughts on Jordan Mason? Very much so underwhelming performance tonight because, Carson Wentz left them in the dirt. Again, we know that he's talented. We know that he is in an offense that should be far better than what they presented tonight. And I think that it leaves a sour taste in our mouth, but I think he'll improve. Trade away Warren for Puka. If you can trade away Warren and get Puka, you should do it, and you should do it immediately. Absolutely, without a doubt in my mind. Emily Doyle says, am I a jerk for offering Marvin Harrison and Genty for Jamar, or is that a trade that they may consider? I think they're probably not going to consider that to be a trade that is of value, primarily because of the upside of which Jamar could find. I think if you're ever going to move off of let's say a top 5 wide receiver, you're probably going to want a player or 2 players that are going to be able to put up consistent production. And what we have found as of late is that Marvin's not consistent and Genty doesn't have an offensive line. So unfortunately, I don't think you're a jerk for offering it. I think it's just a matter of it's probably not going to be accepted, and just be like, hey, take this with a grain of salt. But if you're interested, here's some depth if you would like to be piecing off Jamar Chase in an upcoming trade. I think that's kind of the way that it would go about it, but I don't think it's going to be accepted. Hey guys, starter says Scat or Achane. I mean, honestly, play them both. Howard says, would you trade Herbert for Daniels? I have Knicks as my backup. I'd rather trade Knicks for Daniels if I could. Ravens defense getting healthy. Lamar Jackson should be back. Baltimore versus Miami, Minnesota, Cleveland, New York Jets next 4 weeks. Great call. Nice guy. Great call. Should be a good stretch. Even they've been the worst defense lately. Yeah, I think you're right. I think, look, once their offense begins to improve, the deficiencies of their defenses will be patched up because their offense continues to score. Because what the Ravens have not done well this season is stop the run. And if they can at least put themselves into positions where they have taken a commanding lead and they can send their pass rushers after opposing quarterbacks, that's where they'll find value as a defense and where they'll be fantasy relevant there. Traded T. Higgins and Woody Marks for Tetairoa McMillan in a 12-man full PPR. Is it a W or an L? I think it purely depends on what Tetairoa McMillan is trending rest of season. I think with Bryce Young, I think the upside is capped. I think with T. Higgins can provide rest of season with Woody is probably of more value. But genuinely speaking, it's just a matter of like, is Bryce Young going to take the next step? If he does, fantastic. If he doesn't, I think we're in trouble there. Prod says, I'm starting Bijan and Christian McCaffrey, though. LMA. Oh, okay, yeah. In that case, Prod, in that case, I think I'm playing the battering ram. Genuinely, I think I'm playing Scat. Rev Jaden says, having issues with bye week, having to start Nick Chubb, and thankfully Vidal. I have Monunga on my bench. Is it worth starting over Chubb this week in a PPR? I would say, look, here's the thing. Nick Chubb in a full PPR probably gets himself 10 touches on the ground, 50 rushing yards, maybe 45, maybe catches the ball once. Let's say he comes away with one catch for like 12 yards. Okay. Nick Chubb can come away with anywhere between like 7 to 13 points, assuming he scores a touchdown. Okay. Monunga in a full PPR, is he going to be exposed to enough receiving opportunity to be relevant? I honestly don't think so. To which, like, is he going to get enough rushing workload or utilization to be relevant? I don't think so either. I think I play Nick Chubb there just because I do believe the touches are going to be a little bit more consistent this week. Angel says, where do we rank Scary Terry rest of the season? I would assume right now, depending on the status of Jaden Daniels, like if Jaden Daniels is going to miss another couple weeks here, then unfortunately Terry McLaurin's like a wide receiver 3. Like he's in ranks between like 30 to 36 because of, Jaden being out. Would appreciate your opinion. Let's say what you have here, Mike. Says, I'm in a PPR, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, and 2 flex. Would you trade away A.J. Brown and Dobbins for Achane? I don't know if I'm making that kind of a trade. Let's see what you have on roster. I have Breece Hall, Pacheco, Davis, Spears. So you'd be trading away a theoretical top 20 running back and a top 20 wide receiver for a top, technically 8 running back, maybe top 6 if we're being very generous. My other wide receivers are CeeDee, Rice, BTJ, and Tez Johnson. Considering you can start 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, and 2 flex, the idea of starting CeeDee Lamb, Rice, BTJ, and AJ Brown as my 2 wide receivers and 2 flex every week, then pairing up Pacheco and Breece, I think is no, not even Pacheco and Breece. Breece and J.K. Dobbins is actually more, in my mind, palatable rest of the way. I think I'd rather hold on to the depth because you can start 6 of these players. Trading 2 that would theoretically start weekly for you in the exchange of 1 is not worth it in my mind there, Mike. All right, guys. I think that's where we're going to call it. I do appreciate y'all coming through. Let me see if there was actually, I think there was a super chat just sent in. Let me just go ahead and take care of that. Ray Barrera sends in the final question this evening. Says, who sits, JCM, Chase Brown, or Diggs? I think JCM has to sit there, genuinely. Especially considering Jaden Daniels is out. I'm going to lean towards JCM as the sit. I'll play Chase Brown against the Jets. I'll play Diggs up against the Cleveland Browns this week. All right, guys. That's where we're going to call it. I appreciate y'all coming through, supporting the channel this evening. Again, I'll be back tomorrow, hopefully with some hidden gems. Again, tomorrow, I probably won't be streaming, but I'll be back Saturday afternoon with starter sit questions. Additionally, back on Sunday morning, this upcoming Sunday morning, we will not be having a 4-hour live stream. We will go back to the 3-hour live streams, primarily because there is no London games. Thank goodness I can sleep on a Sunday now. But again, if you guys want my Sunday morning rankings, you can check out Betr. I've mentioned it before. When you sign up today using code Andrew, make that first time deposit minimum of 10 and make a first time play within a real cash play. You'll be eligible to get not only my rankings every single Sunday morning, but of course the free $10. Just make sure you're eligible via the states on the map to the right side of the screen to get those rankings sent from my email directly to yours. All encompassing rankings, half PPR, full PPR. But again, if you guys are not interested in Betr or aren't eligible, you can always check out the Patreon, get questions answered there. Of course, Discord community server access, all that available. Thank you very much. I appreciate y'all. Have a great rest of your night. I'm going to go ahead and cue the double helix. And until next time, I'll see you guys. Peace. Okay, I've got a couple more minutes here. The camera's off, but I'm going to answer a couple more questions here that I see in the chat. Juan Vaca Ramirez, I know that you sent in a super, but obviously I was leaving, but that's no problem. I'm more than happy to help out. It says, I received the trade to let go of Javonte DK ETN for his Taylor and Adams. Ooh, brother, I take it. I think I genuinely take that. I mean, see, I have JCM, Bucky, Tootin, Sutton, and Worthy. So your roster would look like Taylor, Bucky, Sutton, Adams, and then either Worthy or JCM in the flex. Man, you know, it is a lot of value that you're giving. Oh, man. Oh, goodness. I want to trade for the RB1 of the league, but like, damn. I think I do it. I think I do it because I think Taylor's not slowing down anytime soon. That offense is just too clean. Thank you. Let's see here. GB says, would you trade Kyler for Flacco rest of season? I have Hurts as my number one quarterback. I mean, under the assumption this is a 1 QB league, sure, doesn't bother me. That works. Love the gems, big Marvel fan. All right, thanks, guys. Appreciate it. All right. Charlie says, do you still have Big Gauntlet? I do, yeah, but it's somewhere in storage. Yeah, I've definitely not had it out and about. That's not something that just sits around anymore. All right, guys, that's where I'm going to call it. I appreciate y'all. Have a great rest of your night. Peace.